Well, welcome, Chef Julia Hanna. We're so pleased you could join us today. Why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Oh my goodness, that's when you've lived as long as I have, that's a long introduction. But I am thrilled to be here because I have always been a fan of your work. And I think that right now, especially after the pandemic, we have been taught a few hard truths and hard lessons. And I think the Halton Environmental Network is an organization right now that's going to have the prominence that it's fought and so well deserved to have, because it's about protecting not just ourselves today, but protecting the future for our children, which is something that's near and dear to me as a restaurateur. So I am a restaurateur. I've owned restaurants. I will say next year will be my 40th year of owning restaurants. So obviously insanity is in my family, because that's not something anyone normal person should do for 40 years. And I have a restaurant called Ritorno right now, which is in North Oakville at Trafalgar and Dundas. And all my restaurants previously were in the downtown Oakville. And my life is about food. And I have watched what's happened with food over the years. And the shifts that we've made, some are so wonderful and positive, but some need attention. And I think that's what we're trying to address today, right?
Absolutely. So today we actually have brought you on to help us deal with food waste, which is right. Such an issue right now, like as people have realized, even immediately right now. So obviously during the whole COVID pandemic, where there was issues of food insecurity, and now with supply chain management and people realizing, where does my food come from? And maybe I don't have access to what I thought I had access to. We're realizing we should not be wasting such a valuable resource and taking it for granted. And I think we're finally waking up to that. And hopefully you're going to give us some tips and tricks on how not to waste our food and not to take this precious resource for granted.
Well, I think this has been an issue for decades now. I think the realization, the one thing, when we look at this pandemic and what it's done to us and the destruction and the havoc that it has brought to us, we were unwilling participants in it. If we don't take a breath and look at what it's taught us and learn a few things that will make our lives better moving forward, then the pandemic has done even more damage. Right. And I really think what the pandemic has done is made us, because we were forced to stop, we were forced to look at how we are doing things. And we were like, my grandmother used to say, when you join the band, they're going to make you march. And what she meant by that is, if you just go with the status quo, everybody's moving, everybody's like, we have to get here, we have to do this, we have to own this, we have to go travel here. And everyone's on that trajectory, then you're not stopping to think, is this for me? Is this what I really want? Is this bringing me happiness? And now guess what? We're going, oh, wow, maybe that wasn't working so well. And one of the main areas where that realization has hit like here is with food and how we handle food, our relationship with food, our respect for food. Right. And that is something now that we have to fight to hold on to that feeling so that we protect our food and we protect and be mindful. The whole thing today now, the word is mindfulness. What mindfulness is just being present, just not being so distracted by all these things that we thought were important that we're not focusing on what we're doing that moment. And food has been the greatest victim of that. And that's how the waste has come to be, because we haven't thought about it. I'll tell you a quick story. My grandmother, I had the good fortune, and as I don't know if you've been to Ritorno, but we have a nonna wall. And every restaurant I've had my grandmother's picture up as she's my, as a dedication to her, because I truly feel still guilt that I didn't acknowledge the magnitude of what she did with food. So this time, something made me think that I know she's not the only woman who did that for their families. And we put it out to our guests. And now we have over 400 nonnas and from all cultures hanging on the wall. And it's a tribute to them because they didn't have the voice women today have. By the way, we still don't have the voice we need, but they didn't have nearly the voice we had. And she came out after the war, they immigrated to this country. So they came from poverty and they came here to build a better life. And she fed everyone. That was the power she had to bring people together. And whatever she had, everybody had a part of. So food to her was so meaningful because she understood that it wasn't something you could take for granted, because she lived in a time that you couldn't take for granted that you were going to feed your family.
Mm-hmm.
So when she had to throw anything out, which was a rare thing indeed. And you know, they had those little wire garbage cans that hung on the back of the kitchen cupboard door. And I would watch her go to that, open the door and back up, go to the door, back up. I think, what is she doing? And then finally she'd have this little bit of food and she'd throw it down there and she'd close that cupboard door. And then she would do this and the sign of the cross and she'd say a prayer. And she was asking for forgiveness because she threw away food.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we go from that to the amount of waste we have now, right? So we need to create awareness, and that's what we're here doing today.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a beautiful story. It reminds me of I worked very briefly in a nursing home when I was younger, and these were a lot of patients that had been through that awful period just after the war, where there just wasn't that availability,
Right.
And they were just so apologetic if they couldn't finish a meal. And the meals we were giving them were just, quite frankly, ludicrous for the size of these people. Like, these are tiny little people, and here's a big plate of food. Of course they're not going to finish it, but it was a time of plenty. So, you know, we have it, we're going to offer it to you. We're going to put so much on your plate that you're going to be overwhelmed, and then you're going to apologize for not eating it. So you're right, we've created a disconnect between what we should be eating, what we should be serving, and what we should be consuming and accepting, like all along those lines, right? Like, it's been too much, and then it's just like, well, we'll just get rid of it because it doesn't mean anything. It
was excess. We had excess, right? And now we're living in a time that possibly that's a reality that we can't live in anymore, nor should we. And I do believe, Nancy, that's far more than just protecting your environment, which is a number one priority. It's so much more than that. It's the realization that you want to feel good about yourself. You want to feel like you're doing something good and useful and giving, and throwing away food, no matter who you are, will not make you feel better. But being resourceful with food and finding ways to use food and respect food, it's going to make you feel better. And it's also the environment, which is obviously a profound challenge right now, also the cost of food. Mm-hmm. Like, now we're being challenged with, we just received in our restaurant that our dairy's going up 9%. 9%. All other costs are going up anywhere 4 to 6%. You've been to a grocery store lately? So more reason for us to say, okay, you're not going to do this to me. I'm going to outsmart you. And I'm now going to take some time in the kitchen, right? But I'm going to feel good when I'm doing it. I don't want to feel bad. Don't make me feel bad. I've had enough to feel bad about it. And I think food has been used as a weapon to make people feel bad.
Absolutely.
Food has the power that it could change your life, right? In so many ways, so many positive and good ways, bringing families together, bringing people together, protecting your health, protecting your environment. So let's focus on the power of food to do good.
Oh, absolutely. And that, of course, brings to mind these superfoods people talk about, like kale. Eat your kale, whether you like it or not.
You set me up, because you all know how I feel about kale, right? You all know how I feel about kale. I am not against kale. I want to make it clear. I'm not anti-kale, but I'm really truly going, seriously, people, who is the kale marketing board that got behind kale to make it the only vegetable that's going to save your life? I don't know who they were, but they are brilliant. And kale chips, would please somebody give me a reality check on kale chips? The problem with kale chips is that when you, just a second here, we're getting buzzed in here. And
I
think she dropped.
Yeah.
That was a good rant.
It was a good segue into kale.
Good setup.
Oh, there we go. Oh, we can't.
Are you there?
Yes, there we go.
Oh,
Perfect.
great. Okay, sorry about that. Now we have to figure out with this phone when a call comes in, how we can stop it from invading us, huh? Are you there?
Yes, yeah. I don't know what happened there. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Back. So we're on kale. I think that was the kale board shutting me down. Okay.
They heard.
I think it was the kale, like the kale police saying, oh, there she goes again about kale.
So let's start the kale rant again, and then you
Like-
can segue from there.
Okay, well, my kale rant really comes down to, seriously, we have put so much pressure. First of all, I actually feel sorry for kale because it's so much pressure on it to be this super wondrous vegetable. And quite frankly, God bless people who enjoy the taste of kale, because I think that's a good thing. But when I think of the vegetables out there and the vegetables I've worked with and the vegetables I have in my life, kale is not in my top 10 for flavor. And it also isn't for nutrition impact either. So I think we just have to open up our horizons. And I think that's part of talk about the pressure that we have, Nancy, when it comes to kale. Helen, am I talking to Helen or Nancy? Helen, am I talking to Helen?
Yes.
Helen, oh my gosh, please edit that part. Well, it's okay, because you know what, Helen, can I tell you something? I call my children by different names anyway, so don't take an affront to that. I call my children by my dog's name, so there you go.
Everybody in
Anyway.
my family has a vowel name, so they all get mixed up.
Thank you so much for understanding, and thank goodness that we were going to edit this. Anyway, I just think we need to open up our minds and not just, I don't think the pressure we should put on one thing to be the be all. And I think that's where I think more than anything, Helen, that's the sort of the example of the extreme behavior with food. Extreme behavior when you're making kale, everything is about, like kale chips. I don't know anyone's had a kale chip that's went, oh, I can't wait today to eat my kale chips. Like, I just haven't met that person yet, right? And you have to create, if you want to get people on a path to a better relationship with food, then you have to make it appealing to them. You have to make them want to go towards the light. And you're not going to do that if you're forcing people by saying this is what you need to eat, and if they don't want to, right? So that's really the challenge.
Absolutely. So that makes a nice segue to, I heard that you have your own garden, and I'm
Yes.
curious as to what you grow in your garden.
Well, interesting, because I'm glad that you asked about that. The garden is sponsored by Starlane and Longo. So they've been our partner in our not-for-profit Healthy Fam. And the garden is at the corner of Dundas and Nyagawa. It's a beautiful, in North Oakville. It's a beautiful garden. And we've had it for over how many years, Bree? 10?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, at least 10 years.
At least 10 years. We've learned a lot. That's the thing about food. That's the thing about gardening. Don't go into it thinking, yeah, I'm going to get it. You are not going to get it, okay, until you've done it a few times. And even then, okay, and I am very blessed that my father, we call him the captain, the chief, the boss of the garden, because my father to this day, at 86 years of age, has a garden in his home that feeds the family throughout the winter months. It is a marvel. So he consulted and helped. Needless to say, he got to experience many moments where he said, I try to tell you, but you don't listen to me. I try to tell you, because we try to grow things like artichokes, and seriously, no. So what we've done now is we've gone back to the things that people really want to eat. Yes. Which is, right, like zucchini, cucumbers, tomatoes, broccoli. We've tried corn and we love the idea of corn, but that takes years, right? And those are the foods that we work with, the basic food groups. And it has been a great success because peppers, right? Like most people, it's not, as my son Alex's favorite word is polarizing. That's how I feel about kale. It's polarizing to me, okay? It's a polarizing food. So some vegetables can be polarizing, but there are vegetables that are more generic. And if you want to try to reach as many people as possible, then stick with the vegetables that people really want to eat, that you really want to eat. But if you're doing a personal garden for yourself, then it's what you want to eat, right? So
Absolutely, experiment away
exactly.
and accept that sometimes it won't grow, or it'll grow so abundantly that you have a lot of zucchini to give to neighbors.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to fail. See, get to my age. Get to my age. You're so practiced at failing. It's like, oh, okay, right? There's advantages, to living long enough that if you experience failure and you go, oh, okay, and you keep going, it doesn't impact you as much, right? So.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get started then with, I see you've got some vegetable sprouts there, and
okay, so if we talk about food waste, I think for me, everything is about being prepared to cook. So if you want to prevent food from being wasted, then have things available that you can ensure that you're going to prepare it and cook it, because you don't have to start from scratch with everything. One of my absolute favorite all-time life foods, we use it at the restaurant, I use it here at home. I'm going to quickly grab one here. I'm off. I'm going to be right back, I promise you. And I'm going to show you the end result. This is what we call a sofrito. And I make it, and it's the flavor base for anything. You can use this for soups, in your tomato sauce. You're sauteing chicken, a spoon of this will just give it that zing, which is what we're looking for, because we want our senses. We want that food taste all the time. And all it is celery, carrots, and onions. And garlic. We don't add garlic to the sofrito mix because garlic is something that cooks differently, and it comes in after you've cooked the sofrito for a while. So the French call it mirepoix, right? The Spanish call it sofrito also. The same combination. Sometimes they add peppers to it, but to me, this is again the most neutralizing. Carrots, celery, and onions, and it's 2 parts carrots to 1 part celery, right? And if you want to do it, it's something easy. These little mini food processors, as you know, as a chef, I have all the big guns because that's what I do, right? That's my living. But if I'm every day and I'm cooking every day, and you have no idea how often I use this little baby, right? And I'm just going to chop some carrots up. You're going to trust me that I'm going to do it to the right parts. This part of celery, this good stuff, this leafy stuff, don't use that. Save that for salads. If you slice that, chop this part and add it to a salad, it's that zing that people go, what is that taste? I know what that is, and how come, what am I tasting? And it's just celery. Oh, come and say hello. Come and say hi. You have to say hi to someone here. This is our Rocco.
Oh,
say hi, Rocco. Say hi, Rocco. Rocco Rooney, we call him. He's my food taster, right? He's already ready now. Got treats underneath everything. So, okay, let's throw some celery. He wants to get in. He's a camera hog too, right? I'm Italian. Okay, now the onions.
Wait, so as you're doing that, we can't see your knife skills. So are you just rough cutting this, or?
Get rid of this guy here. How's that? Let's do
perfect.
this. Move this out of the way. Okay, as you can see, I always have garlic in a bowl. It ready for me, right? And I'm going to show you what to do with onions and garlic after too, okay? Because if you have it frozen in your freezer, you're less likely. Here's the thing: you come home from work, you're exhausted.
Yes.
Now I got to chop onions. Now I got to chop garlic. Now I got to chop celery. Now I got to chop. Give me a break. You're not going to do it. You're just going to be overwhelmed. So, but if you have a couple of hours on the weekend that you can set this up in your freezer. So now see this here will all go into a stock pot. Don't get rid of this. All this stuff, keep it to the side, put it in with a big pot of water and let it boil. Give it 2 or 3 hours. And now you have this beautiful flavored stock that you can use in your food, right? And you do the same thing with the carrot peelings, and then you add flavor to your food. It's a vegetarian, which is a good thing, right?
And was that
So you
skin
wanna-
and all of the onion, or?
Hmm?
Is that the skin included on that
Yeah,
stuff?
the skin, yeah, I put everything in, because then I
Oh.
just strain it. Again,
okay.
simplify, right? So now my onions are in here. Okay, this guy is like a beast, this little machine. And if it works for me, because you know, when we're on camera, it doesn't always want to cooperate. Look at Bree trying to get in here to handle this. Come on, this is real life, folks. Okay.
There
Okay,
you go. There
I
you
think
go.
we got it now. Come on, behave. Like seriously, it never does this, and why is it doing it now? You're gonna use all of this, aren't you? Okay, so what I said about it being simple,
Do you
I'm
wanna
a
move on to
liar.
something?
Huh?
Do you wanna move on? I can do it over here maybe.
You wanna do it over there? Okay, you do it over, she's gonna play with that over there while I give you some more tips, and then we're gonna show you why that all went wrong. I'm gonna show you something too, I'm pulling something out of the freezer. Bags of onions and chopped garlic. So when you might have to pull it out again, because I don't think it's down. What happens is that when you use a mini chopper, this is a life lesson too. When you use the chopper, you have to make sure that the blade is touching the bottom before you add things to it, because if you don't, then it won't turn, right? Okay, so now I've got my onions, I've got my, and
How long does that last in the freezer if I chop that up?
months, absolute months. So what I do is, if you take this chopper that we're gonna get working now, because here, Bree, I can, this is really frustrating me. I'm about to throw it out the window because I'm
Do you wanna
so,
do it?
yes, I'm so frustrated with it. Usually when I'm at home by myself doing this, I get to say all the words that I can't say right now because they're filming me. So the reality is once you, and you can do this with sofrito too. As you see, I put them in quarter-liter containers. Okay, that's enough for now. Quarter-liter containers. You can also put it on a tray. Once it's done, once we've done it, put it on a tray flat, freeze it. Once it's frozen, then you can put it in bags like this. Okay, like seriously, what is going on? We are having technical difficulties.
Well, you know, sometimes that's not bad for the viewer at home to see, because
I want you all to see that this is like, I'm not giving up, and please use your editing powers, because, okay, I think we,
all experienced this at home where we tried to get something to go and suddenly.
yeah, and it's life. This is real life, and then anyone, that's the problem. I have had a cooking show for 10 years, and we're filming our last bit. Okay. Seriously, I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It could be actually, oh, here we go. Finally, got a little, I can say what I want to say now because you can't hear me. Got a little. That's the slightest thing I could do. You know, you have to have patience, and it's already told me who's in control, right? Not me. And that's another thing with cooking. Let go of the fear, because you're gonna do dumb things like that. And I'm just going to show you now. You can take this sofrito, you can put it in one of these containers, put it in the freezer, or you can just do this and do the same thing with chopped garlic and chopped onions, and just put them on the tray. I'm going to show you this.
So, sorry, is that enough that it's pureed, or is it a little bit chunky?
Well, I like it a little bit chunky because it dissolves, but if you like a puree, just keep it longer, let it blend longer, right?
Okay.
But if you look at that, that's going to go in the freezer. Once it freezes like that, you're going to take it off and just put it in a bag like this. Give me one of those trees. No, the big ones underneath that chews on. So this goes in the bag in your freezer. And when you're cooking, all you have to do is, when you're cooking, all you have to do is take a piece off. Like literally, you see the garlic, how it kind of freezes together because it was laying on the tray? When I'm cooking, I just cut a piece off, and in my pan it goes. And the same thing I do with my onions. They're a little easier to use because they don't clump together like the garlic does, but it's brilliant, right?
Okay. Sorry, can you show us that tray just a bit closer to the camera?
Sure. And of course, I would have, if you're gonna be doing this, I would have a lot, like, I would just do a lot of it. Because that way if you have like 3 or 4 bags in the freezer, you're less inclined. So this is a sofrito, but I also do it separately with onions and I do it separately with garlic because depending on what I'm cooking and what I want to reach out for. But either way, with the sofrito, which is again, onions, celery, and carrots. That is a flavor base for anything. This is a powerful food tool for you to have. And it also is when it comes to waste and all that, and again, it goes in the freezer, let it freeze. It doesn't take long. Once it's frozen, goes in a bag, nice and clean because it's on parchment paper. So parchment paper is the secret, right? You want parchment paper because parchment paper is, you could reuse. Like that parchment paper, I can use it and reuse it again. So what it does, it keeps the tray clean, less work for me. In my freezer, I'm cooking tonight. I come home, I'm tired. What do I have? Oh, great. So I have my onions already in the freezer. I have my garlic. I have my sofrito already there. And I do the same thing with basil, and I do it with oregano, and I do it with cilantro. So you've got it in your freezer. So now I can cook without all that added pressure because I'm prepared. And it's also when it identifies what you're talking about eliminating food waste. You're going to do that when that carrot, like I'll give you an example. Right, this is not the prettiest looking carrot. I'm not going to, use this as a display to get me excited about food because it's been around for a while. But this carrot, once I peel it, I use the skins in the bottom in my stock, and then I puree it to go in my sofrito. It's perfect. Right. So now why don't we look at some other good little food tips? Actually, I'm going to get a little stock pot for that. Excuse me here for a sec. Because I want to get that going because, again, you want to be prepared, right? So I'm going to take all the scraps and I'm going to make sure that this is already filled with water, and I'll let that simmer with the celery, the carrots, and the onions. And that right in itself is a really wonderful base for a vegetable stock, right? So another great way to use, so tell me, do you want to go on with another recipe? You tell me, ask me any questions. Because I'll just talk and you get just very bored of hearing my voice.
No, it's okay. So you've added the scraps to the pot and you're adding water and you're just letting it boil for the
Yes. Give it a 2-3 hours minimum. Let it come to a boil, then it comes to a simmer. I can't see Helen on the camera anymore. I can only see me. I'm looking at the camera and I can only see me, and that is a terrifying thing. I have to tell you.
So are you adding what else can you add to a stock?
So,
Like
right now, because I'm gonna make a frittata, right? So I'm gonna make a frittata with zucchini and potatoes. So again, I'm gonna put, I think I can turn the camera around a bit this way, Avery.
Do you want to come to this part, maybe?
Because it's better there?
Or do you want to?
No, I can just bring it over here, honey, or I can reach it myself, okay? Just put it over here. Okay, so a frittata is sort of a secret weaponry to have in your kitchen because you can put anything in it. I look at a frittata as a base, as you would pizza dough, pasta. It's your base, it's your canvas. And you can add whatever you want to add to it. And a frittata is a canvas. It's eggs. Eggs, okay. But then when you add to it, it's like you've taken eggs and now elevated it. And the thing about a frittata, that once it's made, right? Once you make it, you can freeze it. You can take a frittata, and what I do is I wrap it up in aluminum foil. Then I cover it put it in a bag, put in some saran, put it in the freezer. Again, one step, take it out of the freezer, take the saran off, and it just goes in the oven to heat slowly in the aluminum foil. And you have a dinner there. So if I'm making a frittata, I'm probably going to make 2 frittatas, or I'm going to make one big enough that I'm going to be able to use half for the dinner and half for later, right? So you want the zucchini, when you're making a frittata, you want all your vegetables to be the same size, right? Because the secret is if your vegetables are a little bit, they're not uniform in size, they don't cook the same way, right?
sure, yeah.
Do you like frittata?
I do, yes.
All right. And you have to have onions. Frittata, some people put garlic in a frittata, and I'm very much a traditionalist that way. No. And again, onions, I'm chopping some onions. If I had my onions ready, like we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Right now, I wouldn't be chopping those onions. I just go in that fridge, grab the onions that I have there, right? But
So
since I have,
do you have to add your cooking time then if it's coming out frozen?
not really, because it's so, that's a really good question, actually. That's one of those questions that makes a lot of difference. No, not really, just a little bit, because it's small. And once it hits the hot pan, quickly cooked, so you don't have to worry. Now, when you're making a frittata, you're using potatoes, right? Sometimes what I would do, because I don't have roasted potatoes now, but if you have leftover roasted potatoes, don't throw them out. What you want to do with leftover roasted potatoes is you want to put them in your frittata, because then you're cooking you take your leftover roasted potatoes, chop them up like I just did with the zucchini, and you cook them together. But because these potatoes aren't cooked, and I'm going to use little baby potatoes, watch your fingers, and I'm going to cook the potatoes for a few seconds first, okay? Because if the potatoes, what you're going to do is the potatoes are going to take longer to cook. That's why it's always good if you have extra leftover potatoes, just chop them up, right? So what do you think of a potato and zucchini?
Yeah, I love those.
For you? Again, most of the kids, this is something you can probably get kids to eat. I don't think you can get them maybe as excited about kale. I got my kale jab in there. I feel better now.
And those are the easiest ones to grow in the garden. Potatoes, you stick them underground, you basically forget about them, and suddenly in the fall, you've got a whole crop. And zucchini, they're notoriously easy to grow.
They're very easy to grow too. So, and what I've done is I've got my pan on, and maybe we can move the camera a bit that way, Bree, so we can see that. Okay, so we've got the pan on going. Oh my God, that's scary. I just saw myself there. Okay, so the pan's going, and it's nice, and you want to heat it up. A non-stick pan is really good for a frittata, okay? I want to put my potatoes in there first to let them cook a little bit.
Right, so you've added a little bit of oil, or is it just?
Yeah, olive oil. Olive oil. I love my olive oil. That's the only oil I use, that and canola oil. That is it, right? Olive oil is like a blessed thing. And you don't need a lot of it, but you have to remember that olive oil doesn't have a high smoke point, right? So that means that you can't fry with it. And you shouldn't be doing a lot of frying anyway, so that's easy, right? A little bit of salt. Let these guys cook a little bit. We want to get them nice and brown. That's great, because we can show this. Yeah, I would keep the camera there and watch this guy go, because this is far more interesting. That's okay. Who cares? She's worried about seeing the dishes in the sink. Nobody cares. Do you have dishes in your sink at home?
Yeah, that's why the door is closed. So
look at the rest of our kitchen, everybody. Looks like a regular kitchen. Okay, so that's cooking up nice. Thanks, Bree, for sharing. Thank you. Okay, so now,
are you looking for a nice golden color on the potatoes, or what are you looking for?
100%. Good question, because you want to because once the eggs go in them, once the eggs are in them, you can't brown them anymore. So this is your chance. This is where you babysit it just a little bit. You don't want to be spending a lot of time. You want something easy. Why this is a wonderful dish is because you can make it for a weeknight and you serve it with a salad. You don't have to have any meat. If you have meat eaters in your family, then you can add, diced ham to it, or bacon, or the Italians, we like to use prosciutto in there. But if you're not a meat eater, this is a beautiful vegetarian dish, right? So that's going. Let's get it nice and brown. These are little potatoes, so they shouldn't take as long. But what you want to do in this process, I want to show you really quickly. See, what I would do is just reach in and grab it, but I don't want you to do that. What you want to do is just fork test it. And if you can't get a fork through the potato, it's not cooked enough, because once it goes in the oven, the potato won't cook anymore. It's just going to cook the eggs, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? And since we're not fooling around when it comes to food, we don't waste food, so we're going to let it cook so that it has the time that it needs. Normally, when we're filming our cooking show, we go off camera. Well, I'm just looking at our sink. Yeah, that is a mess back there. Okay. That's the real, who made that mess? Huh? Huh? Okay, almost there. So
But just
now
Oh, what are you adding now?
I'm gonna show you where I just want to make sure these potatoes are ready for the love. Here's the love. Now, that sofrito would actually be beautiful in here too, but not necessary. But if you have it, add it.
All right,
Okay.
so can we
Onions, chopped onions.
see the pan to, there we go,
Chopped
perfect.
onions, okay? Now
Yep.
let the onions cook a little bit. You want them to caramelize. You don't want them to burn. You
Okay.
burn onion and you burn garlic and it's gonna have a bit of taste unless you're caramelizing onions, which means that you cook them over a long period of time where you brown them and let them, they almost get sweet, okay? But we're not caramelizing, we're just cooking. So that looks about, now I'm looking at it now. I'm watching this. I wanna see, you know what I wanna see in my onions? The one thing I want to see, Helen, in my onions is I want to see it's got to be translucent, right? So if I look at my onions now, if you look at them, get in that pan, you're going to see they're starting to become translucent. That means they're ready for some more love. And here's your zucchini, and you see the zucchini is chopped up. And I salt as I cook because I don't over salt.
Okay.
Right? Because over salting is a cardinal sin. Because you can never, ever, ever take the salt away.
Right.
All those tricks that they tell you, you can get the pan, eh? So now, if you think about this, is going to be I'm going to make it 6 eggs.
Okay. 6
Which
eggs.
is okay? And I would say this is going to feed 4 people easily. I once had a woman that worked with me. Her name was Katrina. She was like she was a tough woman. Gosh, she was big and strong. And she once came to work and told me she made a frittata with 12 eggs. And there was nobody home. So she ate the whole frittata herself. That's a record. I don't suggest that for anybody. So give them a good whip. What you don't want to do with the eggs, you don't have to. So if we're worried about dairy, and with the frittata, you don't need milk, but a little bit of milk is nice. Gives it a more of a, what it does is when you add some milk, it just gives it a really nice, fluffy texture. So I'm just gonna give that a good whip. Okay. Just a dab, I'm saying. That would be like 4 tablespoons of milk. And then there's that rinse in that container. There's the Parmesan cheese free.
All right, so just whisking that milk in.
Right, and just mix it in. Give it a crack. But black pepper, even kids can eat black pepper if they don't see it there. And it just gives it a nice little. And watch as we go over here. Okay, this is love. You know what this is, right? What is that?
I can't see actually. Is that parsley?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Italian parsley is like the most flavorful. Parsley is not just something that we tend to chop and just throw on top of a dish to garnish. Parsley is really gives everything a freshness. And again, you can put it on a tray just like I chopped it right there. And you can freeze it, goes in a bag, do the same thing with parsley.
Oh, that is good to hear that I can freeze it, because how many times I've seen a recipe that asks for parsley and I've either omitted it or I've had it and then the rest has gone to waste because I thought, well, I don't have another recipe that's using it now the rest of the week.
And
But,
that's the thing. And that's what you don't want, babe, okay?
Yeah.
And that's absolutely right. So when you're doing parsley, because parsley is there's a lot in parsley, right?
Yes.
When you're doing it, you're buying, even if you just buy one little head of parsley, you're not going to use all of that in one meal. You're just going to use a tiny bit of it. Let me show you what a smart company did. Okay, everybody gets to see my freezer. Sometimes I cheat and I have this as backup. This is a company that's done exactly what we're talking about, right? And in a pinch, it's there. But what I'd like to do, what makes me feel better, and again, I'm being honest. Let's be honest about when we cook in our kitchen in our lives. this is the way to go. Do it for yourself. And I will be, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Those have been there for a long period of time and I haven't used them, which makes me feel good because I realize that it's just as easy for you to do it yourself, right?
So have you found there's anything you cannot freeze that just does not work to freeze it?
Cilantro freezing works. Basil, oregano, garlic, parsley, onions, leeks, they all work to freeze and they're all wonderful to work with.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a heavenly thing. And of course you want fresh. And yes, isn't that wonderful? Look at this little guy right here, right? And I'm gonna add, because I have it here. I want to show you too what I've done in my freezer with parsley. Oh no, with garlic. Where is my my basil? Oh, see this basil? Take a peek in here. This was basil in ice cubes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then I just popped them. So when I'm making a tomato sauce, this is frozen ice cubes. Spray it with some nonstick spray
Mhm.
and the ice cube holders. Fill it with the chopped basil and a little bit of oil. And then once it freezes, you just pop them out and put them in a container, put them in a bag. You see my tomato sauces?
Mhm.
My rice, frozen. I cook it and freeze it. Because when you're in a pinch, it's all here. This is sweet potato that I like to put on top of salmon. I'm making sweet potato. Why not make enough, freeze it so I can use it in a pinch? I even have there, that's frozen quinoa,
Oh, wow.
right? So this is how you can cook. Like there's, oh, don't even look at the rest of my freezer, forget it looks like my sink, okay? But the point is, you know, I'm making rice for a dish, right? So I'm making a stir fry. I'm making some nice brown rice. I just put some fresh basil in there. But why the heck don't I just make more and just freeze it? So then
Yeah.
next time when I'm cooking a dish, right? Next time when I'm cooking a dish, I know I have that rice there. So if I'm making a chicken soup, I know I have that rice there, right? So it's just always available to me.
So it seems just like a few more minutes with one meal can save you a whole lot of time for the next.
Exactly. If I'm chopping garlic anyway, stick it in that little food processor that usually cooperates a lot better than that. I guess we can go back, right? And once you have chopped garlic anyway, come on. Let's chop enough so we can put it in the freezer, right? So watch what I'm gonna do here, and you're gonna have to follow me on this too, Bree. If you can put it over here.
Oh, sure,
Can I
sure.
show this? So for the first few minutes in the pan, that does look, I think you gotta get over it. That's it. Just don't watch it drop my phone in the eggs. That'll be interesting. See, and I just pull it back a little bit like that as it's
Yep.
cooking. Just pull it back a little bit like that. Pull it back again. I'm gonna give it like a minute here, right? And then this is a pan that can go in the oven. That's really important, the pans that you work with. You want something that can go in the oven. It makes life so much easier, right? And this one can. So we go right here. The oven's preheated. In there it goes. It's gonna be there 10 minutes. And then you'll see what a wonderful, beautiful thing that is.
Is that at 350 or 400?
400. I'm gonna let that sucker cook. I'm gonna watch it carefully though, okay? So, all right, talk to me some more. Oh, and, I didn't put the parm in the mix. I'm just gonna put a little parm on the top. So what you can do, no, it can't be vegan. There's eggs. For Pete's sakes, I was just about to say that was vegan. Goes to show you, I'm giving away just how much I know about food. It is vegetarian because there's no cheese in that. But what I'm gonna do is when it's just about ready, I'm gonna take my parm. Time to refill this guy, eh? And again, I always have grated parm in the fridge. I always have grated Romano in the fridge. It's there, then I'm less inclined to give up before I even start. That's the thing about cooking. If you're prepared ahead of time, you will start and you will finish. But if you're not prepared and if you don't have these few little things that are supporting you in that freezer, then you give up before you even start. Then you pick up the phone and you call in, or because you're tired and you're overwhelmed, right? And that's why these companies that send you food boxes are so successful, because they give you exactly what you're going to be using for that dish. You're going to do the same thing for yourself at home if you have it in your freezer and you have control, and you're going to save a lot of money, and you're also going to feel better, because that celery that was looking a little bit like, I'm not liking the look of this because it looks like lippy, let's say it. Then, you know, instead of throwing it out, now you've just chopped it up and you've frozen it, and you're going to use it in your cooking, and you've put it in a pot. The rest of the ends of it, you put in a pot, you're going to make a stock, right? Realistic cooking. We have to be realistic. We cannot put on people magnitudes and depths of things that belong in culinary institutions, that belong in restaurant kitchens, that belong in places where you go and you pay for that. Let's put on ourselves things that we can do and succeed. We want to feel successful. People, I tell the story all the time. Nobody invites me to their house. I hope it's not my personality, but I'm told that people don't want to cook for me because they feel intimidated to cook for me.
Yes.
And that's what we've done to food. We've made it something that could intimidate people. And it's never meant to be that. It's meant to be about sharing. Like my grandmother, she was beyond a brilliant chef. But man, we can still remember some of hers, like, well, Nona, ma, que se ches? What happened, right? But her thing was, it was about getting people together. We would sit on Rosson Avenue, St. Clair and Dufferin, and our house was full every weekend. And people sometimes, true story, would bring their own plates that we would fill with food, because we didn't have 30 plates, right? But the point was, everybody sat, and they sat on the stairs, and they sat wherever there was a place to sit, and nobody remembered the china. I catered an event in a home that, you know, it's sort of like some designer, like it was just a multi-million dollar home, beautiful home. And the owner of that home was stressed because she didn't have the latest pattern of china of this particular brand, and they just had released this new pattern. She didn't have it, and that's what was stressing her. And I thought to myself, that stayed with me, that lesson stayed with me, she stayed with me, because I realized that this is the pressure we put on ourselves when we make it about things. Mm-hmm. My grandmother used to say, non si mangia il piatto. You cannot eat the plate. And what she meant was, it wasn't what you served it on, it's what you put on that plate, right? Mm-hmm. And yes, okay, so look at this kitchen, and am I practicing what I preach? I have ridiculous amounts of everything. This is what you call la gracia, but I do believe in that. It doesn't matter to me that, you know, what you serve it on, or the linen on your table, or the size of your table. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that we are sitting together. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a grilled cheese sandwich or a gourmet meal, what you remember, it's never the details of the food. You remember what you felt, what it made me feel. When I walk out of that house, when I walk out of that restaurant, how am I feeling? Do I want to feel that again? Mm-hmm. And food has the power to create a feeling of acceptance, a feeling of belonging, a feeling of connectiveness, and a feeling of good health, because you ate something that was good for you. Mm-hmm. And when we minimize the power of food, it sends me to another orbit, because I see what food can do as far as how you feel about yourself and how it can bring you together. So minimizing that power is, I think, a mistake and a loss for us all, right?
Yeah, that's very true. It's, as you said, it's just so much more than just food.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to walk away from you, but I'll be back. Because that frittata is almost there. And I want you to see how beautiful and how easy it is to, when you take it out of the pan, and how ready it'll be for you to enjoy. And remember, a nice salad with that and some garlic bread. Oh my goodness. And that's another way to use that garlic. Make your own garlic bread. That's another little trick I'm thinking about. Some butter, some Parmesan cheese, and fresh garlic. That's all you need. Soft butter. just lay that on the bread and, oh my goodness, that goes in the oven and everybody wants to come, like nobody, if someone comes to your door and you open that door, they're coming in, okay? Well, that's what garlic, where did my tomatoes go?
There's right there.
Well, oh, right in front of me. Okay, another little trick. So let's, because chefs are anal about, we are anal about cleanliness. I am anal about cleanliness. I'm actually neurotic about cleanliness when it comes to food, because food is, again, you need to protect it. My mother used to, like, my mother would point at a corner in the floor in our kitchen. She still comes and makes some gnocchi in my restaurant, eh? And she's 83 years old. And she's a little bit famous, and I think it's going to her head. And on my cooking show, we've had like celebrity guests, I mean, serious celebrity guests, but she is like the all-time favorite. Thank you, Grace. She used to say, she would point to a corner and she would say, would you sit there and eat? And like, everybody would look at her and say, well, I wouldn't sit in a corner like that anyway. But her point was, like, why would you ask me that question? The point she was making is, if it's not clean enough for you to want to even sit there, it's just not clean enough, right? So here's, I'm going to show you another trick. Now, when tomatoes get a little bit past their prime, where they start getting, you know, they get their little bit of blemishes, you can cut off those blemishes. Again, here's my end. In my stock pot is going to go.
Okay.
Like, this is a little bit kind of mushy. Would I put this in a salad in my restaurant? Not. Okay. And this is a nice little trick too. I want to show you with tomatoes, and it's, everybody loves these. And you want to cut them nice and thin. And because I don't want to waste, nope, my knife is not as sharp as I want it to be. Julia, how'd you let that happen? So you line them up on parchment paper. Again, do not overlap them, because you don't want them. I'm going to show that to you in a second. Oh, actually, you can see some of that, can't you? Okay, let's do another one while I'm here. I wish you were here, because then I could just give this to you to take home to eat.
I know, I'm getting quite hungry.
Yeah, you haven't seen anything yet. Okay, so now we're going to take this and just line up apart, and just line up, but you're going to use as many tomatoes as you have. If you want to have 3 or 4 trays going, I'm going to recommend that you have 3 or 4 trays going, because once they go in the oven, and you'll see what happens with these and what you can do with them. These are oven roasted tomatoes. When you put them in a low oven, let them cook for a while. I found a secret to this. I actually put them in a higher oven and they come out just as nice, because we are often in a hurry, aren't we? Okay, because I just want to be able to show you this. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this now is, first thing is, give them a salt. Give them a salt, olive oil. And I don't have to be, oh, don't ignore my phone. It'll stop ringing in 2 seconds. We forgot to take it off.
Nona.
It's my mother, of course. She's calling because I haven't called her and it's almost like 11 in the morning. Okay, and this is dried basil. So you know what? Fresh herbs is always the way to go, but you don't always have them, right?
Right, yeah.
And sometimes dry herbs do the trick. Honestly, not all the time. And grab the oregano too, babe. Not all the time, but I will say that some of the times it works. Okay, so now let's do this.
And what is that you're putting on?
This is oregano.
Oregano.
Dried oregano. So while I'm gonna go to the oven now, pull out that frittata, and I'm gonna put this in.
I'll follow you.
You follow me, eh? Let's do a switch. Now take a look at this. I want you to see this frittata. That goes in. Look at that.
Oh, that looks amazing.
Does that look edible?
Very much.
Okay. Now you've used a non-stick pan, right?
Yep.
And because you've used a non-stick pan, which is the right thing to do, then it's going to be very easy. Let's wipe this down, Brie. Unless she's a beauty, eh? Right, with a nice piece of crusty Italian bread or whole wheat bread. And look at that. Oh, and when I take something out of the oven, another little trick I want to show you, always do that.
Right.
Because I guarantee you, see, in the kitchen in restaurants, we literally always have a cloth in our hands. We
Yeah.
cook, we have one in our apron, but we always have a cloth in our hands. So without even thinking, when we grab anything, we're always grabbing it with a cloth, often when we don't even have to.
Mhm.
But when you're at home, you don't, it's not that you don't think that. And you don't want to take something out of the oven and then you're going to go put your hand on it and you're going to say those words I almost said with my chopper earlier on that wasn't chopping for me, which is a no. Yeah, this is good. Let's use this. See?
Oh, beautiful. It just comes out. Super easy.
Look at that. See? Right. Now, wait. We need a little bit of the love. Let me just grab a. That's normally full, which tells me that I need to refill it. Because that's just grated Parmesan. And I get my own parm. Because, oh, then I want to show you another trick. Oh, yeah, lots of tricks. Just give it a nice little sprinkling it because it'll melt nicely on the. Normally I would do this with my hands, but we are on camera. And I don't do it with my hands in the restaurant. Nobody is allowed to put their hands in the food. But when you're at home, let's be real. I'm feeding my family. They must trust me, right? Here we go. Okay, Brie, I'm gonna find it. Please let me find it in my, oh, I got it. So, what's this? Can you guess? What is it?
Oh, that's your Parmesan.
Yeah, it's the rinds.
Ah,
See, so I take the skin. You know what kills me? They now sell it. Like stores have figured out they can make money with this when this was something that they tossed, which is ridiculous. And that's why I love Italian philosophy of food. The Chinese are the same. It's respect that they don't throw out anything that they can use. And this is the skin. So when you take your wedge of Parmesan, you cut off, obviously you cut off the skin because you can't eat it, but this skin is great flavor enhancer. So when I'm making a tomato sauce, because I want it to be vegetarian, I put one of these in as a sauce simmers. When I'm making a soup, a chicken noodle soup, if I make a sweet potato soup, a sweet potato and carrot soup, whatever soup, when it's simmering, I toss this in. And it just gives it a flavor that, you know, nobody knows what that flavor is coming from, and they don't go, oh, I'm tasting something different. It's just something that just tastes good, and it just makes the dish better, right? So
and
see,
sorry, does that completely melt away, or do you eventually?
good question. You have to take it out. It won't melt away. It'll melt off the little bit of cheese if there any left. It'll melt up, but it won't. You have to remove it.
Okay.
Some people love to eat it. I'm not a fan. Like, I don't want to work that hard because you have to chew it like crazy, right? So it's too much work, but some people enjoy eating it. But it's definitely edible, definitely edible. You don't have to toss it. I know I have a little dog, when I give him a little piece of it, thinks I'm the best owner that ever walked the face of the earth. Okay, so, all right, so that's in my freezer too. And that's a good little trick for you because Parmesan Reggiano is very expensive,
Yes.
but there's nothing like it. And I grind my own because in that little food processor that worked for me after 20 minutes, that little thing can actually grind it up nicely so that you can use it on top of your pasta. Have it ready there in the fridge, and you're not going to go to something else, right? And now I've taken that wedge of Parmesan, and there isn't one piece of it that we've tossed. Not one. We've used every single bit of it, right? And that makes my Italian ancestors very proud. Because again, it's about just knowing you have to have, this is not something, see for me, because I grew up and I saw it, but it's not something that you just have a knowledge that we just don't have knowledge that we're born with. This is not, we need to be taught, we need to be shown. And there are, quite frankly, there's an awareness now to the way that our ancestors cooked that we are now getting reacquainted with, which we should have from the very beginning of time, right? Because they cooked with respect for the food. My grandmother, when she said the sign of the cross and said a prayer, when she had to throw anything out, meant that her relationship with food, as my youngest son would say, was solid. Because she respected the power that food had, and she also understood that not everyone has the privilege of not having to worry about where their meal is coming from that day. And you know, the old story that you would hear the old biddies say, what about those people starving? And what? Well, you know, we minimize that, we trivialize that, we make fun of that, but there's truth. We don't have to worry about where our food comes from. We don't have to worry about whether I can feed my family or not. But all the people every single day, millions and millions in our own community, by the way, in Oakville, not just in other far parts of the world, that don't have the luxury to put their head down on the pillow. You should just take it off the hook, to put their head on the pillow and never have to worry about food. There's too many people in our world that are struggling. And this pandemic has actually created more food insecurity than there was before. And we need to address that. And by being aware of where our food, what we're doing with our food, not wasting our food, you're actually helping people that are food insecure, because that means that we have more to give. And all these organizations like Food for Life, all these wonderful organizations that are what they call rescuing food, we need to support them in any way we possibly can. Whether it's volunteering financially or providing food, because they are doing exactly what you're talking about, what we're talking about here today. They're looking at food that they can't put on a retail shelf to sell, but it's perfectly fine and delicious food. And they are making it something that is, they turn it into meals. Well, if you think of that philosophy, shouldn't we be doing the same ourselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Is there any one particular vegetable that, you know, you just know everybody wastes and you just cringe and you're like, I know they're all chopping this, you know, and losing the top ends on this, and they really could be using it, like carrot tops. Can you use
Well,
the
carrot
greens in
tops,
carrot
yes,
top?
because they, again, but look, again, I'm going to be very honest and frank. When it comes to food, I am, okay? You have to be realistic about what people are going to, if they can utilize it. For me, stock is the way to go. It's the simplest format. You can make carrot top pesto, but people are, you know, it's going to be, you're going to reach a minority of people that are going to do that or find a creative way to use that. And I feel I'm blessed and supported of people who are thinking of these creative ways to use, you know, something like carrot tops, right? But the reality is, if I can put in my stock pot, which I do, and I could get a beautiful stock out of it, that's good for me. I can use it for garnish. I take carrot tops and I chop it up and I garnish my food with it, right? But beyond that, to exercise more creativity, do I have that time? If I do and someone does, then they should pursue that. But if I can find ways that are simplified for me to use them, then I will. What's the one vegetable? Gosh, I think honestly, I think all vegetables aren't getting used enough. I just think people buy it with good intention. They want to have more vegetables in their diet. They really do think it's important, and they really do like the idea of eating more vegetables. But guess what happens? Life happens, right? And you don't have the time, and that's why what we talked about today is so important. Is these little tricks will buy you the peace of mind. We do not need to add more pressure. We want people to not waste food. We want people to understand the importance of why wasting food is just harmful from A to Z, but we want to facilitate it for them so that they can feel success in doing something good for themselves and for their family and for the environment.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hey, you want to take a look at this one? It's cut. Ooh,
Yes.
see that? Look how, and you know the wonderful thing about frittata? Okay, here. Oh, okay. How far away are you? Because yeah, I can wrap this up for you. It's delicious.
I might have to find my way over.
You should. But again, this in a sandwich. Have you ever had a frittata sandwich? Oh my gosh.
Oh, no, that sounds
Frittata
great.
sandwich. Okay, you melt a little bit of mozzarella. In the oven, a piece goes. You toast your bread or your panini, you toast it, or you toast your panini with a little bit of cheese. put that frittata in there, and those oven roasted tomatoes. Now we found, because those oven roasted tomatoes, let's talk about where they're gonna go. Oven roasted tomatoes in a sandwich. It's wrong, when I make sandwiches and I put those oven roasted tomatoes in there, everybody they wanna know what this is, because it just gives it such nice flavor, right?
Mhm.
And people who don't like sliced tomatoes in a sandwich will eat an slice of oven roasted tomato, because all that, they're dried. So all you get is a flavor.
Mhm.
Fantastic on pizza. Aglio olio, one of the most basic sauces there are in Italy, and that's olive oil and garlic. And if you use an olive oil and garlic base, you can add anything to it. And one of the things to add to olive oil and garlic is oven roasted tomatoes. Throw in some of your vegetables, saute them together. The
Mhm.
pasta just comes out into the pan with the olive oil, garlic, roasted tomatoes, and vegetables, and you just toss. It's a beautiful thing. I'm gonna go check on these tomatoes. Let's go for we're gonna maybe, I think it might be a little bit longer, but I want you to see what they start looking like. See that?
Okay.
See how they're drying up?
Yeah.
See how we're getting that nice brown around? So I'm gonna flip this around, because that's one of the things that really pains me. I've never found an oven, and I have like one of the best ovens in the world. Take a look at my oven here. It's like rated one of the finest in the world. They don't cook evenly in all corners, no matter what. And I hate flipping trays. And sometimes I gotta be honest with you, I just don't do it. But if I really want a consistent cook, then I have to halfway through cooking, take that tray and turn it around. So that's going away. And we've done our onions, and we've done our garlic. Oh, and this baby here.
So how do you know when the tomatoes are ready?
When they're browned.
Completely brown.
Brown. Like
Okay.
right now, I can pull them out now and they'd be perfectly fine, right? But I want to wait till they're just a little bit more brown.
Okay.
Right? And then I let them cool down. And did you see how we put the garlic? We put the onions in a little bag.
Mhm.
Do the same thing with the oven roasted tomatoes.
Oh, you can freeze those too.
What I do though is I wrap them in parchment paper so they separate. The problem with the oven roasted tomatoes, if you put them all on top of each other,
Yeah.
then they can't. But if I layer them, so I just take little pieces of parchment paper and just layer those tomatoes, and they are absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
Oh.
These
Any
are
other- huh?
amazing tips you've shared.
Yeah, I'm so happy to do so. I just want us in the kitchen cooking. That's what I want.
Yes, there was a campaign a while ago, right? Get everybody back in the kitchen cooking instead of ordering in. It's
Yeah. Well, I think more and more people have discovered it, that they have discovered that cooking really is not just, there's so many things about it that are right. I mean, so many things about cooking that just improve the quality of your life. But let's be realistic. It's also a lot of pressure that people have on themselves.
Oh, yes.
And the lifestyles, like when I look at my grandmother, I look at her, I can tell you that she cooked at a time when she was the one cooking the meals, right? That was her job. Mind you, we never thanked her enough. And that's why that Nona wall is there, because we just took it for granted. You know, my grandmother, I'll tell you a really quick story. She, when I was very blessed that my first restaurant was a little place called Cafe Galleria. I opened that in 1983 on downtown Lakeshore Road. And she walked into that restaurant, put it in the other room, just put it in the close door. And Rocco wants to be on camera. Where are you, Rocco? Sorry. Rocco is a camera hog. Okay. So 1983 opened up Cafe Galleria. And she came into the restaurant, and I was in my chef whites, and I was in the kitchen, and I had all my saucepans and everything was going on the stove. And she just looked and walked out of the kitchen with this face that I hadn't seen before. And I thought, was there something wrong? So I said, no. I said, like I said, cheers. Like, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And you want to know something? She looked at me and she said, Julia, she said in Italian, she says, hey, Ju, they're going to pay you and they're going to say thank you. And I never got it till years later, because it was true. Like, you have a restaurant, if you serve people good food, they actually thank you for it. And then you can earn a living. You get thanked by the fact that they pay for that food that they enjoyed. where she made all those thousands and thousands of meals.
Mhm.
And how often do we thank her? Not often enough. And how often do we truly appreciate what she did? Not often enough. And I know we cherished her.
Mhm.
But I understand now why people ran from the kitchen, why women ran from the kitchen when they
Mhm.
had a chance. They ran from the kitchen because it was a thankless job. And there
Absolutely.
was no recognition in the work that went into it. It
Mhm.
was taken for granted.
Mhm.
And so in the minute they had a chance to run out of that kitchen, they did, and rightfully so. So then what does that make me realize? It makes me realize that we need to acknowledge the people that cook for us. My husband walks around this world and tells everybody that he's the best fed man in the world. But guess what? Every once in a while, I'm looking at him going, you think this is every day. Well, no, there's a lot of work. And you need to acknowledge the person who does that for you. There's nothing wrong. In fact, it's a wonderful thing that if someone makes you a turkey bacon sandwich, or they make you some sophisticated sauce, it doesn't matter what they made you.
Mhm.
You thank them because they put it in front of you and you got to enjoy it. So kiss the cook every time. Kiss
Well,
the cook.
I think that's so true all the way down the line, right? From the
Right.
farmer who grew it, to those who picked it, to those who put it on the
Right.
grocery
Right.
shelves, to those who cooked it. Like, we have to be
Exactly. Our
grateful
farmers,
about the whole process.
well, look what we've done to our farmers.
Mhm.
Why is the average farmer's age in this country 60?
Mhm.
What does that tell you? It tells you we're not enticing young people to want to farm. Why? Because we are human beings and we need to measure our work with the rewards.
Mhm.
And why do we fight that? If there aren't rewards at the end, who is going to keep doing things that
Mhm.
just don't offer that? And that's what's happened to farmers. The amount of effort, work,
Mhm.
physical, mental, and in the end, the value doesn't redeem itself with the quality of life that they deserve for the work they do. Well, why the heck would they do it?
Oh, exactly. Farmers don't get to take vacation, because who's gonna look after the
Thank you.
animals and the food?
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So it pertains to all parts of food. Same thing in the people who, cook our food, people who grow our food. I mean, really, we need to just stop and think. I teach my kids, I drive them crazy, but yeah, I do it more often than they probably would like. But when we sit at the table, I just say, take a second, let's think where this came from. What did someone do to get this food to us?
Mhm.
And that's like, hey, I cooked this, so I get like first rating, right? So, but no, but seriously, who brought that food to the shelves? How are we so lucky? We're blessed. That's what my kids say all the time. We're blessed.
Mhm.
And gratitude is what we need around food, Ellen. We need to have gratefulness to have it. When you're grateful for something, you don't abuse it.
Mhm.
When you're grateful for something, you respect it.
Mhm.
When you're grateful for something, you know the power that it has to enhance your life. And gratitude to the people who produce our food and the people who cook our food is a good place to start. And for the fact that you don't have to worry. See, I don't have to worry. I say this when I get into the depths of craziness with this pandemic, and believe me, there were moments like, I like to believe I'm a positive person, but there were just moments where I thought, I can't do another day of this fear and worry. And then I think about, well, but I didn't have to worry about feeding my family.
Mhm.
That's real worry, right? That's real worry. And when we sit in judgment, I remember once I was in a store where there's a woman buying this big gigantic bag of these processed hash browns,
Mhm.
and she had her young kids with her, and there would have been a time I would have judged her,
Mhm.
and I thank God that someone gave me a shot on the head, because that I'm looking at that going, she's got kids,
Mhm,
Who's supporting her, helping her? What kind of work is she doing? What is she earning? And
mhm,
she's looking at that bag that's inexpensive, but
mhm,
will feed her children's belly.
mhm,
And she's looking at to that as a solution. My question to me was, how do we get there? And how do we help change that?
mhm.
Right? So judgment in food. There you go. I want to leave you with that. When it comes to food,
Yeah.
it's no judgment zone. If you judge me on how I cook or how I eat, you could go live on this island with everyone else that's judging, and then you're all going to have miseria, which is misery. Do not judge. When it comes to food, we're all trying to do our best.
Mhm,
And that's why sometimes when I used to see, when we started Healthy Fam, that's how it came from, that premise about feeling good about food. Because sometimes when you see people that almost adapt food as a religion, which is a great thing because their intentions are good, but it's not going to help someone if your philosophy of food makes someone feel less. That's not what food should ever do, ever. So when I judged that young woman, and that was a lot of years ago, I want to put it out there, I have never forgotten that. And I still beat myself up for it because I'm still talking about it like 30 years later.
mhm,
Who the heck was I to sit in privilege judging her without knowing what she was trying to juggle? So what can I do instead? And we founded Healthy Fam, and that was one way. We have started, we continue because we're starting up our classes again. We empower people by teaching them how to feed themselves. And when the pandemic started, we were like totally, like someone had sat on us and said, okay, get moving. But you're sitting on me. I can't move. I'm powerless. So we started something called Retorno Gives. And we have now, we have donated over $50,000 in meals through the pandemic to various organizations. And we've had people who have donated and have supported us from the beginning, and we are indebted to them. And we have contributed ourselves at Retorno. And that came from wanting to take the power back. Because when the pandemic hit, I was really feeling sorry for myself, feeling sorry for our industry. And the only thing that got me in touch with the reality of what this pandemic was doing to others was by doing something like Retorno Gives, where we were making meals for people that issues were far greater than mine. So it's not about you. Food should always be about others, not just about you.
And I think we'll end it there because those are
Wonderful.
wonderful words to live by.
So I'll wrap up the frittata for you. Here, Rocco, come here. Come and say goodbye. Because poor Brie is trying to contain this beast. He's just a puppy. Here, Rocco, where are you?
Wrestling with him in the background.
Huh?
Wrestling with.
Thank you so much, guys. He is a pain in the you-know-what, but he's a puppy and he's cute. Anyway, thanks so much. Let me know if you need anything else, okay?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on here today and giving all these tips and sharing your stories. It's been wonderful. And I hope
Thank you.
someone
Thank
else
you.
can learn both the tips and tricks and the philosophy behind it.
Well, thank you. And please edit kindly, because that's where the power is. My son is a filmmaker and editors have the power. That's what editors have all the power.